welcome back to another Wi-Fi Chic Tech video with me, Tom. The good news is we've finally moved. So this is the first video from our new base here in central Shropshire in rural England. Admittedly, everything is still a complete mess. So my workshop isn't built yet, my computer areas and studios are not set up. I'm pretty much just crammed in this little corner here, but never mind. Anyway, wasn't planning on making this video, but yesterday, and literally yesterday, someone made a comment on my video about Ichigojam BASIC. It was a tutorial video, and asked a really interesting question. Have a look. So thank you to YouTube user The Chosen's World for that really interesting question. And it got me thinking, maybe I should make another tutorial video showing how to create a sprite-based platformer and how to get a character to jump. Now, in order to save time in this video, I'm not going to go over the basics of how Ichigojam BASIC works, because I did all that, including setup, in the previous video, the link to which is in the description below if you want to go and watch that first and then come back. However, if you're up to speed, we're going to be using the helicopter program, which I wrote a little sprite game, and we'll use that as our base. You need to get the source code, which is on the screen now, and if you pause and copy that code, we're going to start from that point. So without further ado, let's get going. So if we look at the original Super Mario Brothers here, you can see that Mario, as the sprite character, has a gravity, and when we jump, he's pulled back down, and when he hits platforms, he can stay on the platforms, but doesn't float around. So this is the sort of logic that we can recreate in Ichigojam BASIC. Okay then, so we just bought the system online. I'm using a Raspberry Pi Model 2. This is actually a slightly older version of Ichigojam BASIC. The newer version I think is 1.2.4 at the moment, so I really need to update. But for the moment, this will do. So we've looked at what we want to create from Super Mario. We want to create this idea of a sprite that has gravity and drops. So let's load in the helicopter program, which we did at the end of the last tutorial for this. So for this, I'll type load, oops, and I think it's program 3. So let's just list program 3 and have a quick look. Yeah, there we go. So let's just clear the screen, list again. So as mentioned, if you've not got the program and don't want to go back over the first video, there's the program. You need to copy that and then make sure it runs by typing run. Okay, so at the moment the logic is we do have a controllable player with Z and X, and then I've got its question mark or slash key and comma, semicolon to go up and down. And then you land on the pad and it goes well done and everyone's really happy with you, and that's the end of that. So we hit, well, it's ended anyway, but if the program was running, we'd hit escape, but you see it says okay, so it stopped. So let's list again. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and recreate or use this program to create sprite logic. So basically the helicopter will become our sort of, if you like, Mario type sprite figure, and we want to create the sense of gravity so that the sprite will be dragged down till it hits the floor or a platform, and then we can press space to jump. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is look at where our loop starts. So line 100 is go to 30, and 30 is where the keys for the key inputs start. So that's for the left, right, up, down keys. So the program constantly loops between here and here, which means anything we put in between will be involved in the loop. Okay, so what we'll do is we need to add a gravity logic. So let's go down and find some space down the bottom here. Let's try putting a line 32 in, and let's set the y coordinate. Remember, x is across, y is up and down. Let's set the y coordinate to constantly drop. So if I now say y equals y, and remember it's plus to add to the value to go down the screen, so it's plus 1. Okay. So let's just list the program again. And you'll now see, if I just bring the cursor up, 32 has now been added. Okay, so let's give that a run, see what happens. Did you see that? It was very quick. Let's run that again. So we created some logic, the helicopter died a death, end of story. So we now have created some gravity, but it's quite harsh, quite quick gravity. Let's list the program again. Now I want to add to the line. So let's go back to line 32. And if we add a semicolon afterwards, and if I now say wait, I'm going to say wait 5. Now if I said wait 60, that would be equal to 1 second. So 5 is a very short amount of time. Just remember to hit return at the end of the line. Okay, let's try running this. Okay, that was a little bit better. We've now created some logic for falling, so we have a gravity implemented. Let's go back to list the program. Now we need to disable the bit at the moment where it says to end the program if we hit the helipad. So here it is at line 80, and I'm just going to comment it out by typing REM, making sure I return at the end of the line. And REM is short for reminder, and it's a bit like adding a comment. So when the computer reads REM, it will ignore anything after it in that line until we start the next line. So it means I can keep my code in there, I don't have to delete it, but it won't be active. And now you can see that the helicopter just keeps falling and falling and falling, because we haven't told it where the ground actually stops. Let's list the program again. Okay. So if we go back to 32, and if we now type if y, and we'll say is less than, let's say 20, see how that works, then you can see we start y equals 5, so that's where the character of the helicopter is plotted on the screen when we start. It's then dropped by 1 every rotation or loop of the program. If I ask it for y to equal less than 20, then it will carry on the drop by adding 1 to y every time, and of course waiting 5 ticks. However, if this statement here is not true, so we actually get to the point of equaling more than 20, then it won't add anything, and hence we'll create a flaw, of which our character will just stop. So it should stop on the screen. So let's test that and see what happens. Okay. There we go. Yes, we have stopped, and that is line 20. You'll notice it's still flickering. And when 2 characters are trying to draw on the screen at the same time, it's even more horrendous. Okay, so we've now created a gravity. So we'll hit escape to break, list the program again. Okay, so what we can now do is look at taking our up and down function keys out, because usually with a sprite that walks on a platformer like Mario, you have a left, a right and a jump. So we don't need an up and down, as this helicopter's changing into something else now. So to do that, we'll take some lines of code out. So we need to take out the y command. So you see here it says plus and minus y. So we need to remove lines 38 and 37 from the program. To do this, I can just type 37 and 38, just like that. If I relist, you'll notice they're now gone. Let's run the program again. So I've still got left and right, and I've just hit the bottom of the screen and we're not going any further. So let's escape. So what about creating a jump function so that we can jump back up? Well, let's add a new line 37, and let's add the spacebar. So we'll make the spacebar our jump key. Now, first of all, let's find out what space is in ASCII characters. To do this, I can simply ask the computer to print ascii, speech space, speech mark or double quote mark, curly bracket, and you'll see it now comes back with the answer 32. So key number 32 in Ichigojam BASIC is the spacebar. So now I can program the spacebar to have a function. So if I now say 37 if k for key of course, equals, and we'll say 32, then, and in this case we want to give some height for our jump. So y is equal to y, and remember to go back up the screen, we actually go up in minuses. So minus, let's say -5. Okay, so let's run that again, see what happens. Ready? There we go. It's very flickery, but you can see we actually now have a jump mechanic and we're going back and forth. And we'll just hit escape there. Okay, so let's list again. Now we need to change the helicopter character because we're no longer a helicopter, we now want to be a person. Luckily, Ichigojam BASIC does have a little stick figure person character built in, so we can replace the helicopter. And if I hold down the Alt key or ALT key, which is usually next to your Windows or Mac Apple key on your keyboard, I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to press P. I get a little person. There we go. Just run to check. So I have my little figure now, but it's still really flickery and we need to try and sort that out. By escaping list. Now the flicker is caused because we have to redraw the screen each time. So here at line 70 is a CLS which clears the screen, and unfortunately, although Ichigojam is a lot better and a lot faster than the 80s microcomputers that would have really struggled to redraw the screen every time, the refresh rate isn't quite fast enough, hence we get a flicker. So if I take 70 out, list just to make sure 70 has disappeared, it has, and I now run, watch what happens. The flicker's sort of gone, but it doesn't redraw the screen. So we just create this sort of strange rainbow effect of all the different figures of where the sprite has been. So we still need a way of refreshing the screen, but without causing that flicker. Well, one way of doing it is to simply wipe where the sprite has been, move it, and then wipe the space after it. What do I mean by that? Well, we break, type list, and just above where our loop starts, so we'll put it in at line, we'll make a new line which will be line 31, and all we're going to ask it to do is to reprint the sprite space but blank. Watch, so if I say location X, Y, and then ask it to print, open with a double quote mark, space, so in that case a blank space which will print as a blank solid character, end quote marks like that. Now watch what happens. If I run again, not amazing. A little bit better than it was. But it's probably better practice to do that than rather trying to CLS something all the time. So let's escape. Let's list. Okay, what we can now do is we could actually take the helipad out, or for now what we'll do is we'll just put an REM comment in at line 75. Just return that, and that will remove our helipad. So now we just have the blank screen and the sprite of the little man that is able to jump up and down. Like so. Okay, so what happens now if we want to maybe, I don't know, create a platform or something for the man to actually jump on? How are we going to do that? Well, listing the program again. Let's see if we can put a platform in at some point. So if we go in at line, let's start at 90. Line 90. Let's first of all locate. So let's say location, and we're going to set some coordinates now. We'll say 10 by 10. Then we'll put a colon, and then we're going to say print. And we're actually going to call up a custom character now. And this isn't one that we can use the Alt key for. So looking at the Ichigojam ASCII sheet to see what they've got built in as character sets, they have a sort of a semi-pixelated block. It'll do fine for what we need. So we'll say CHR $, open bracket, and call number 2. Let's run, and you can now see that a block has appeared on the screen. I'm going to list. Put a semicolon in. $2 again, and we should be able to get 2 of those together. Oh, make sure you run on an extra line. Yes. So we can just stack as many of those together as we want to create a larger platform that we want. However, it's not quite in the right place. So let's list, and let's move our figure over a little bit. We're going back to the X and Y coordinates. And let's move him over to where he should land on the platform, which we said was going to be line 10. So we'll say, 10 characters across on the X. Change the X to 10. Let's run again. Okay, so our character did hit the platform, but of course just fell straight through it because there's no detection to tell the sprite what to do if it hits the platform. Luckily, we can solve this. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape. List again. Now, what we need to do is we need to set up something to actually read what's on the screen just underneath the sprite. If we look at the reference material for Ichigojam BASIC, again, I'll put a link in the description to the video. You'll see there's a command that says ascii, and that's screen read. So if I now set up a new variable, let's call it Q. Well, let's put it on a line first of all. So we need to make sure it's inside our loop to refresh. So where can we put Q in? We'll try Q in underneath where we draw the character. So let's put it on 52. And Q is going to equal screen. And we're going to tell it to say the player coordinates of X and Y but we need to read the block underneath the player, so we're going to say y and plus 1. Okay. Now that in itself should work, and it hasn't worked. Let's have a think. What have I done? Ah, I know what I've done. Let's go to the affected line. I meant SCR, not SRC. Easy mistake to make, not to worry. Okay, so it hasn't changed anything, but we now have Ichigojam actually reading what's on the screen. So how are we going to detect what's going on and stop the sprite from falling if it hits the platform? Well, we go to list, and you remember we put that gravity logic in, which was here, line 32. If y is less than 20, then we fall. Well, what if we added an extra statement to that? So if we say if we're less than 20 and Q, which is our new detector, does not equal, now this means doesn't equal to, and you do that by having two triangle brackets like so. So it does not equal, and we know the ASCII character we called was 2. So if Q doesn't equal 2, then you can fall. Okay, let's try running that. Ah, there we go. And you'll now notice that our little figure has stopped on the platform. But if I jump up, I'll fall back down on the platform. And if I go over the edge, I'll continue to fall until I hit the bottom of the screen there. And because we've now created that logic, we can add other platforms pretty much wherever we want. So let's have a look now. We could say put a new line in at 91 if we felt like it. So we'll say 91. Let's set a new location of, let's go slightly further across. So let's say 15 and 11. So we're going to go down a block and we'll print another set. Don't forget the all-important dollar symbol when calling characters. 2. And 2. Let's have a look. There we go. So now, can we now jump between these two platforms? Oh, not quite. Let's try that again. Oh, I think we've jumped off the top of the screen, but the character will always fall back down again. There we go. Ah, there we go. So it's a bit buggy and the logic's a bit sporadic, but you could tighten it up with just a bit of tweaking, maybe adding some more wait commands. But we now have the basis for a really simple platformer game. Now we could have it that when we hit the bottom there, we actually die. So let's put some dead logic in. Oops. Make sure we list correctly. Okay. So, do you remember that line we took out? Which was here. So let's reinstate the line and make some alterations. And all we're going to say is if y equals 20, then go to line 110. And 110 will clear the screen. and 120, which used to say well done, will now say game over. Okay. I missed. Bang, I've hit the bottom of the screen, game over, the program stops. And we can run again. Nope, nope. There we go. So I'll just clear the screen for you and list the new code one final time. There we are. If you want to save, don't forget to save it to an empty file slot. You've got 4 file slots on Ichigojam. That's 0 to 3, not 1 to 4. So I'll save it on 0. There we go. And that is basically how we can create a platformer and a jump mechanic. What I will just say is I've just noticed I have a line that we took out here, which is the old helipad that we don't really need at the moment. So to save memory, because remember we've only got 1K of RAM to play with in Ichigojam per program, so I'm just going to wipe out that line. Let's list again. And run. And we're still running absolutely fine, which is great. CLS. I'll just list the program again for you. And there we go. So that is how to create the very basic jump and sprite mechanics to create a 2D platformer game in Ichigojam BASIC. So I hope for Chosen's World that helps answer the question, and I wish you all the very best of luck with your own coding. I think it's fantastic that people can use the tutorials and the videos I do to go off and do their own thing. That's what this is all about, and I really thoroughly enjoy helping out people. So hopefully you found this tutorial useful. If you get stuck at any point, remember to pause where I show you, list the full source code and copy that code. Make sure you don't get the colons and semicolons mixed up, because even I do that. If you're still unsure, go back and rewatch the first tutorial, which was the very basic setups for Ichigojam BASIC, before jumping to this one. If you're still stuck or still want some extra advice or help, please feel free to leave a comment or message me on YouTube, and I'll get back to you if and when I can. Okay then, well, until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe to us here on Wi-Fi Sheep, and I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.